good, everybody? It's Reed. Welcome back to another tutorial. I'm so excited about today's video. We're going over my favorite force, the crosscut force. So a lot of you who know the crosscut force are probably confused why this is my favorite force. It's so basic. Literally, you have to have no skill whatsoever. But knowing the best way to use it, when to use it, how to use it, this force can be so good. This is the only force, well, it's the only force that I know of that is done in the spectator's hands. They're basically forcing a card on themselves without knowing it. There are other forces that do this, but they're always weird. They're always like, you have the spectator flip half the pack and flip it again and then flip it this way. You know, it seems weird. This one is simply having them cut the cards. A totally normal, justifiable action, right? And so you don't have to do anything. Like, once it's set, they cut the cards and the force is done. They do it in their own hands. They can be holding the deck the whole time, and it's so good. Again, it has to be used right, and it is a little bit tricky to know when and how to use it properly, but that's what I'm going to try to cover in this video, because of course the mechanics are extremely simple. So without any further ado, let's jump right in to the crosscut force. Alright, so here is the crosscut force. We'll take the Jack of Hearts and we will put it into the middle, and I'll lose it somewhere. All right. Now, I'll have the spectator cut the cards wherever they like, and then just mark the spot that they've cut to. Now for this to work, it's pretty incredible, right? We've put the cards somewhere in the middle, and I've given you the cards to cut. Now, you've cut the cards at any point you like, and we had lost that Jack of Hearts. You don't know where it is, I don't know where it is, but watch this. Take off the pack and reveal the card that you cut to. The Jack of Hearts. Alright, so in terms of exposure, start with the Jack of Hearts on top of the deck. Alright, now have the spectator cut the deck wherever they want and mark the spot that they cut to with the other pack. Alright, now you talk, and obviously when they reveal where they cut to, it is the Jack. So a breakdown, if you haven't figured it out already, because from watching that, you probably know exactly how it's done. All you need to do is control the force card to the top. Okay? Now, normally when you cut a pack of cards, you take the card that's in the middle, right? Once you cut. But in this one, we're basically confusing the spectator and having them believe that the top card is where they cut to. So whether they have the cards in their hand or on the table, I do think it's a little bit better on the table. So usually I'll just put the pack in front of the spectator, and then I'll say cut the cards wherever you want, right? So they cut. Now, because a lot of people frankly don't know that much about cards, you know, someone who doesn't play cards a lot would know that this is the card you cut to. But I've fooled so many card people with this, right? All you do next is you instruct them that we're not revealing that card yet, so just take that pack and mark where they cut. So in that action, you're going to gesture and point at the bottom packet, right? Because our force card is from the top, right? So they cut. Now you say just mark the deck with that pack. Just put it on sideways so that we know where you cut, but I don't want to reveal it yet. Now they do this. Now this is so strong because now when they take it off to flip over that card, in their mind it gives them the kind of recollection that they've cut the deck, because they do this action and then they flip, right? And that's why it's so good. But obviously what we can't do is have them cut, mark, and then check right away. What we need to use is a principle called time misdirection. And all that means is basically waste some time, kill some time. You need to kill just a little bit of time so that their memory kind of forgets or fogs up, and they won't remember, you know, which order they cut the pack in. That's kind of the biggest thing. Because if you go like this, and if someone's really, really sharp, to be honest though, it pretty much fools anyone, and you could do it right away, but only if you have a really, really sharp person and they're remembering that's the top card. Once you talk for a bit, and then you have them do the reveal, it will fool them. They will forget that, oh, we're literally just flipping the top card, right? So hopefully you can kind of see the possibilities with this force, right? This is, in my opinion, the force that makes it feel like the most free choice. Maybe besides the classic force, but again, this is a surefire force So, I mean, what else could you ask for? Surefire force that feels totally outside of your control, right? It's very good in their hand as well, because when they cut to the table, then you say, all right, just mark the spot you cut to with that pack. They go like this, and then you start talking. So what's very important with the crosscut force is that you have good instructions, right? You need to come up with sort of a script that you follow so that the participant, you know, does what you need them to do, and you don't want there to be any like awkward pauses where you're like, okay, now just put it, like, you want it to be fluid. So mine is usually, all right, now just give the deck a cut, all right, and then take that pack and just mark the position of your cut. So again, you would definitely want to gesture towards the bottom pack to make sure they put this one on top sideways and don't do it backwards. So instructing them what to do is very important, but you need to make your instructions to them seem natural. Time misdirection is the main thing that we'll be using with the crosscut force. After they have made the cut and marked the spot, we need to have passed some time so that their memory is a little bit foggy and we can pull off the all right, this is the card you cut to move. So the best way to do that is with recapping, and I use recapping a lot, and it's a very powerful technique where basically you just recap what you did. It does make some effects stronger by reminding the audience, okay, you shuffled, then you did this, then you did that. But for this case, it's a great excuse just to talk a little bit, and a great use of time misdirection. So depending on what the trick is, just start recapping what happened in the trick, you know? So you shuffled, and then you picked the card from the spread. Now it was put back in, you shuffled the deck, and now you've cut anywhere you like. You know, just that bit of time is enough for them to forget, you know, where it was that they cut, and for them to believe that when they remove this pack, this is the card they cut to. So that's what's the most important thing with this force. You need to have some time delay and a justification for why we're not flipping that card right away. So usually when I use this force, it's because I'm doing either like a prediction trick or like a trick where spectators each pick a card from a different deck and they end up matching. And so it's great to just do this and say, all right, now let me go over what happened. You know, the reason I'm not giving it away right away is to build up anticipation, so it's justified, and then we flip over both of those cards, you know? You don't want to just be like, okay, make your cut, and now flip it over, right? Then why wouldn't they have just flipped it over right away? So you always need a justification for why we are marking the spot. And a good one is, again, we just don't want to reveal, if you can leave the reveal of the force card till the end for whatever reason, you know, whatever routine you're doing, and you need to use that time misdirection. Another thing I like to use if I'm doing a force in the middle of a trick and say, I mean, maybe this is good when I'm using two different decks, right? And something happens with one deck, and now in the other deck I need to force a specific card. You want to say, instead of, normally at the beginning of the trick, you'll show all the cards are different. But what you can do is save that moment for the middle of the trick, right? And it doesn't seem weird because let's say we've done most of the trick with the other deck. Now when we take this deck, we can show that it's different, right? And what we're really doing is looking for the card we want to force. So let's just pick one at random, 8 of hearts, right? I'm going through. Well, we can either do a cull of the 8 of hearts, or just slightly insert the index finger underneath, and then you keep finishing the spread, and then as you close, you just cut that card to the top and you hand them the deck, and now you're right set up for the crosscut force. So that's a little tip of how to kind of get into that position if you're not just if you don't know where the card is in the deck and you need an excuse to pull it out. That's one I actually use quite a bit, because this force is better in that situation rather than the situation where you know, have their card, you lose it, and then you control it, and then they end up finding their own card. So I use it for more of those situations. So in terms of subtleties, one I'll talk about is the difference in forcing the top or the bottom card. So you can force this card, right? You can use the crosscut force and then say, all right, look at the card you cut to, and have them flip to this one, because that's a normal thing to do. Sometimes you cut, you look at this one, sometimes you cut, you look at this one. But I do think it's stronger when it's the face down one, right? There's something about when you take this pack off of never knowing, it feels like you never know what this card is, and you get to turn it over, and it feels like a free choice. Where when you go like this, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but it feels like less free. It feels like, you know, this card has been there the whole time and now we're just looking at it, whereas this one, it's been face down. No one can know what it is, right? In my mind. So I always like to force the top card on the deck rather than the bottom card. You know, also you might flash the bottom, so, but either way it works. And for whatever situation, if you prefer doing the bottom card, I'm sure there's a reason for it. Another thing is like letting them do everything. Once you're set up for the force, hand them the deck, let them hold it, or place it right in front of them so you get nowhere near it. Let them do the cut. Definitely don't pick up the pack and do this yourself. Just instruct them, you know, say take that pack and we're going to mark where you cut for a second. That just really, you know, how can you force them to be picking a card if they're doing everything themselves? And that's what's so powerful about this force. And a last little thing, when you're in this position, saying something along the lines of, all right, remove the pack and see the card you cut to, that just subtly puts in their mind that, okay, this is the card I cut to, and it further helps to erase that memory of what really happened, right? It's quite neat how you can kind of change someone's perception on what happened just by a little bit of, you know, a little bit of kind of almost subliminal messaging and time misdirection. So just say, all right, so go ahead, remove that pack and let's see the card you cut to. And that's naturally what's going to happen, right? In terms of body language, you know, this one there's not much you need to do because you're not handling the cards. You know, of course, act natural, act laid back, like it doesn't matter, like I say for all the forces, and just make them really believe it's their choice. And your patter, you know, remind them, you cut the pack anywhere you want. You've cut to this card. You know, it's always a good idea to point to that face down card, say you cut to that card, and that just helps cement that idea that this is the card they cut to, right? So just really emphasize that it was their choice. In terms of other uses and ideas, I'll go over something about when the spectator's holding the deck in their hand. It's very nice because it's so natural to do that, right? Like you put a pack down and then you place the other pack on top. So once they place this down, you say, all right, and put the pack on top to mark where you cut. They're not going to, you know, do that. They're naturally just going to take the one out of their hands, and they're going to know what you're instructing them to do without having to point. When you do it on a table, you definitely want to gesture and say, all right, put that pack on top, so they know which one you're talking about, because if they make the mistake and put it backwards, it's going to be very awkward to be like, oh no, switch that around, right? Because really they did do it right, but we need them to do it wrong without them realizing. I love this for final reveals, kind of like I was mentioning. So if you can save in whatever trick you're doing that moment where you reveal the force card to the end, maybe you reveal the prediction first, right? That's a great way where you have them in this position and then you reveal the prediction, and that's great time misdirection to have them forget about this situation. I have a great trick I call the connection that I will teach eventually, where, you know, two spectators have a deck in their hands, they shuffle, they pick out random cards, and I do use this force, and, you know, I recap in this moment, and then the very final stage is where we reveal both players' cards. So it just, you know, leaving this to be off to the side while we do something else is super strong as well. It totally just adds time misdirection. So another good idea is if you have the force card on top, and right before you do the force, you hand them the deck out and let them shuffle it, right? They shuffle it, you take the deck back, place it on the table, and now you have them do the crosscut force, right? So in that, all I did was I had the card on top, I just palmed it off, right? Let them shuffle, and now when I take the deck back, I'm literally replacing it and putting it down right in one motion. And at that point, you know, it's so fair. They just shuffled. There's absolutely no way. You don't need to do that, but it's something nice to do. You do need to find a justification for why you take the deck back and then put it down right away and have them cut. But I'll leave that to you. Like I said, you need to know how to use it. The most important things, always have a justification for why we are marking or why we are putting this pack on top, right? And the reason for that is because we're marking the spot you cut and we don't want to reveal that card quite yet. Those are two good things you can say. You want to have that gesturing, you know, pointing, say, all right, place that packet on top so they know which one to do so they don't screw up. You don't want to touch anything, right? You want to stay back. You want to let them do it. And then the time misdirection is super important. Recapping is a great strategy if you're not exactly sure what to say. Saying, all right, let's see the card you cut to, reminding them that this was their free choice. And those sort of things are really good. All right, so that's it for the crosscut force, my absolute favorite force. So strong, really the ultimate free choice, if you ask me, in terms of a force. I don't think that there's any force that is surefire, that makes it feel like any more of a free choice. And there's no other force where they get to handle the cards all by themselves and force a card upon themselves. So it's super awesome. Learn how to use it, try it out, and it will fool absolutely anyone if you do it right. Use some of the pointers I talked about. Patter is super important, instructing them, and that time misdirection. So we should have another trick video coming soon. I might need to teach one more thing, I'm not too sure yet, but this will probably be the last video in this background that I'll be filming. So we'll have a new background, I'll be at a new location starting next week. So with that said, please like, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.